You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio, man. We are here once again, and today, man, just like any other show, we have a special guest. We're going to talk to Roberta Knechtly, and she is going to release an amazing book really soon, September 9th. It is called She Looks Fine, and it is a special story that we're going to learn about. So without further ado, I know that was a quick introduction, but we have a lot of stuff to unpack here. I want to introduce you, audience, to Roberta. And Roberta, how you doing today? How you doing?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
And it's a pleasure having you on. You're not just an author. You're not just a mom. You're someone that can really relate to business. You're an entrepreneur. You're doing big things, but you also have an amazing story with your daughter. This is a situation that happened, and you are someone that knows more now today than before about traumatic brain injury. And this is a story that I think is a powerful story. So before we jump into that story, let's learn a bit about you and everything that you do today.
Okay, so I have actually been working in a hair salon for over 30 years. And so I've been a hairstylist. I also have done some educating, like hair extension education. And then, let's see, I have been journaling for many years. And about 4 years ago, my kids were in college, and I, became an empty nester and thought I was going to be living my best life ever. Sold the house, moved into this cute little apartment, and I was out of town teaching hair extension classes and received a call that my daughter had been in an accident.
And your daughter, Paige, by the way, is her name. She, like you just said, she was in a very terrible accident, but it didn't just, the story continues. You now are reacting to when life happens, literally, and you're making all these adjustments. Take us back to that time, because that to me sounds like it was a chaotic situation. Anytime you get a message that's an emergency, is pretty much everything drops and you focus completely on that situation.
Yeah, so I honestly didn't even understand what was going on. She had actually called me very early in the morning, and I was getting ready to go to a class. So I couldn't, I thought she said she had been in an accident, and she said her friend was with her at the hospital. So she's like, go ahead and go to class. It took me a long time to even understand, hours. And because she didn't remember, she did not even remember the accident. I don't even think she knew what was going on. So when I finally figured out, and luckily my friend had went with me, she was a nurse. So she was able to kind of like talk to the doctors and figure out, translate everything that was going on to me. But it seemed like it took forever to get home and get back with her. And so we were very close, and I was pretty much all she had at that time. So, my parents went to visit her at the hospital, and everybody said she seemed okay at that time. And it's very interesting. I don't know if anyone's dealt with a traumatic brain injury before, but I get to the hospital and she's acting okay, and actually kind of like adolescent, immature. It's like she wasn't herself. And she had been banged up, and, she was probably heavily sedated. And her friends were with her at the time, but the next day things changed, and she started having this excruciating migraine and couldn't even open her eyes, couldn't stand any sound whatsoever. And it was just very confusing. Now I know, now I understand why, is that with a brain injury, you have that bleeding, bruising, and swelling on the brain.
And with that, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, with that injury, the traumatic brain injury, TBI, was that something that you knew when she was able to go home with you, or were they able to find that out, that was actually a situation while she was in the hospital?
Oh, yeah, they definitely knew right away. She had been hit by a car, and so she had actually hit her head twice and cracked her skull. And so she was, they had to kind of watch her to make sure that there wasn't major swelling, that they weren't going to have to do surgery. But I didn't understand it at all. And my friend had given me some information, but it still seemed like it didn't really help. And it was a crazy couple of weeks. I wish I would have known now what I knew then. And that would have helped tremendously. And that's why, too, I decided to write a book and maybe help people. You know, I did a lot of research, and it seems like there's so much confusion on this subject.
Yeah, so, because that's why I asked that question. If that was something that they knew before she was sent home, because now that I know that she actually hit her head during the accident, do you know, based on what you know now, I'm sure you had support groups and stuff, is there any way people can have TBI even if they didn't hit their head? Like, is there like a violent shake that can cause TBI?
Absolutely. So yeah, you don't even have to hit your head. A lot of people that are in car accidents, even if you have like whiplash or your head, your brain is bouncing around inside your skull, right? So that can cause a traumatic brain injury as well. And there are different levels. You know, there is like a mild, a moderate, and a severe. So there's different way to classify this. And, hers was a moderate. I mean, it wasn't just a mild. It was pretty scary. Once
again, listen, I'm Refocused Radio, talking to our special guest for today, Roberta Knechtly, and her book, She Looks Fine. Now, your daughter, Paige, I find this very awesome. She was able to help you write this book, so she's a co-author. Is that correct?
Yes.
So,
yes,
first of all, that's awesome. And two, what was the process like for you both teaming together to get this important story out there? Because I think this is very important for people to learn about more.
Yeah, so I began this journey of writing this book, and I had no idea what it was going to look like. But the more I started writing, there was so much confusion that I asked her, I said, I really think people need to hear your side of the story. Would you mind maybe just writing a chapter? And so she was like, sure, no problem. And it's interesting because even 4 years later, she still deals with some issues, but she has times that she feels pretty good and other times that she doesn't. So it took her a little longer to write her story, but once she finally finished, she actually sounds really good. She did a great job telling her side of the story, and it turned into 4 chapters, her story. So she's so passionate about it too. She wants to share with everyone, and when it came down to it, I didn't think she was going to be at that point to where it was like ready to go to our editor. Like she didn't have enough out there, and I was a little concerned, but she came through. She came through just fine. She actually, too, during the past 4 years, she did finish college under
that's nice.
disability services. But what's so interesting with the brain injuries also is that it's the short-term memory that they usually, at least she had issues with. So she finished college, and then just recently she said, you know what? I can't even remember what classes I took.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's very common with a lot of people that suffer the traumatic brain injury.
And this is after her accident, she was able to finish college.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes.
That's real awesome, because I can't imagine I wouldn't say side effects, but the lifestyle that she has to almost adapt to as she's living, because if you have those situations, was there any times where she showed you that she was being drained by having to adapt how she lives post this accident?
Oh my goodness. Well, I will tell you, the first few months were really tough, and she'd like to hope that she was just going to go back to living her old life, right? And it didn't take long that she knew she wasn't going anywhere. So she had been living on her own, and luckily my apartment was a 2-bedroom. So when she moved back here with me 4 years ago, she did have her own room and everything. And then we moved all of her stuff back in, and she thought, yeah, I'm not okay. I need some more time to heal. And the first few months, I mean, she hit a major depression and really did hardly left the apartment at all. And, I had to get back to work, and I took off for a while, and then my parents would come and, stay with her and take her to her physical therapy appointments. And she has a lot of other issues like nerve damage on her foot and leg, and some neck and back issues, of course. So it's something that will definitely she'll have to be monitored and take care of herself for, possibly forever. We don't know. We're doing everything that we can. And that's what was so interesting too, was trying to find help. And, there was a point there like, well, there's nothing else we can do. But I'm looking at her thinking, well, she's not okay. So that's when I started doing my research. And I was also in support groups at this time, and everybody was struggling, and everybody was saying the same thing. And I thought, there's got to be some answers out there. So we just started making some changes. And, good nutrition is key. I mean, that's probably key to most things, right? But so she went back to eating. She's like vegetarian, so and very healthy. So we went back to that, and I changed my eating habits too, so that I could make the things that were better for her healing, and just one little step at a time. And there's things that, even just yoga and meditation. She even did a form of oxygen therapy, and there's a lot of things out there, but of course, you're going to pay for them out of your pocket. But it's definitely worth it. I know that these treatments have helped her, and I go into detail in the book too about all of the things that we did and what we felt like helped her the most.
Once again, listen, I'm Refocused Radio talking to our guest, Roberta Knechtly, and Man, I'll say very unique, powerful story because, I mean, this takes a lot of, I can only imagine, I can't speak for you, but I can only imagine this would take a lot of energy out of both you and your daughter to having to adjust. I keep saying that word adjust because I can only imagine, not just adjusting your schedule, adjusting how you talk to each other, adjusting how you analyze things, and move forward. How have you learned so far just to manage this new way of living?
I think one of the most important things is that she'll have like moodiness. Okay, so when I began to see the pattern, and when she would be very quiet or a little agitated more than usual. Okay, I could see that it was because she was in pain, where I thought it was something I was doing, which was crazy, right? I thought, I don't know. It was just took me a while to understand all that. And then I began to see that, and I knew that when she wasn't being so nice, it had nothing to do with me. It was because she wasn't feeling well. And I think that happens with a lot of people that we see on an everyday basis too, right? We just need to have a little more compassion towards others when someone's not being so nice to us, right? That's not always so easy, but it's taught me so much more patience. And, it's been difficult to see because her friends, I think a lot of friends and family don't understand it, and that she is different, and that was difficult. And I think she realizes that too, is that, this changed me as a person. So trying to figure out who she is again. And she started writing music just as kind of like her way of expressing herself. And so that's one thing that she's been doing. I started spending more time just studying and reading and trying to understand. And so, we just, we're in a really good place right now. And we just knew that we had to share this with others. And so also and out in public, she doesn't complain. She always has a smile on her face. So everybody would say to me, well, she looks fine. She looks good. She looks fine. And that really, when I kept hearing that over and over, and I thought, I know she looks okay, but you don't see her on the bad days, right? And so that's what made me title this book, She Looks Fine. And the more I thought about it too, the more that I think that it really represents so many of us that, walk around with a smile on our face and could be in physical pain or emotional pain and just hide it, right? So we wanted to just share our story of how we overcame all of this, and how it took some time and some understanding. And we want to be an inspiration to others because we have, at that time, we both wanted our old lives back, or so we thought, right? And now, I don't know that we say we're grateful for everything that has happened, because if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't be where we are today.
In the book, the title, like you said, is perfect title. She Looks Fine, a mother and daughter's journey through a TBI. And I'm learning too about this TBI. And when I want to go back to the fact that she helps you write this book, because I still think between that and still finishing college is a huge achievement. And I'm sure if she can do it, then anyone else who might be dealing with this situation can be inspired to know that they can do it too. Has she expressed her message? I'm sure she did in the book, but to you, maybe before she wrote it down for you to put in the book, how she's been able to stay inspired to keep pushing forward and living her life to the best of her ability?
Well, I mean, I would have to say her faith in God. You know, that's one of the biggest things. It kind of was, you know, when you're kind of like by yourself, you spend all this time by yourself, you learn to I mean, we've always had faith, and we grew up in the church and everything. So but we had kind of backed off a little bit from that. And so right after the accident, absolutely, that's what she turned to, and I did as well. And gratitude. You know, sometimes you can look at all the things that happen to you or how you feel and be, you know, I mean, she was pissed off. She was mad. She was upset. She wanted her life back. She wanted to be normal again and feel normal. And so when you finally have that outlook on everything and you say, wait a minute, what can I be grateful for? You know, there has to be something. It can't be so bad. And that's what we started doing. We actually have a thing where we both have gratitude journals. And so we'll just write down, you know, when I feel bad, just what are the things that I am grateful for? And that can lift your mood. It lifts my mood every time.
That's a good way to put it, because I just had someone on the show last week or earlier this week, and they was talking about how like they will do all this training for marathons and whatnot. And when the guy was doing this marathon, there was a point where he wanted to quit. But then he remembered a friend who had breast cancer, and he was making a point that even in my temporary pain of wanting to quit for my discomfort, there's always something to remember, that it can be worse than this moment. And what he was saying is that my pain was temporary, but his friend that had breast cancer, she had no choice. She had to fight, regardless how she felt. So he was using that as motivation to keep going in the marathon that he was participating. So I think that's a good perspective to have, that even if it's painful at this moment, at least you can understand that it could be worse.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And you're absolutely. So, you know, one of the things too is that with the nerve damage on her left foot, so she was a runner before. And so they said, well, you know, you just might not be able to run now. And I remember her just breaking down and sobbing when they first told her this, right? And but we're like, yeah, but you can walk, you know? I mean, this could have been so much worse. So, you know, your first reaction, of course, is that, wait a minute, what? I'm not going to be able to run. But who knows? You might be able to. You might be able to later. Who knows? But being grateful that you can walk and do the normal things, you know, because there are people, and I've seen in our support groups, that are in, you know, much worse state. So, and that was a big wake-up call too for her.
Once again, listen on Refocused Radio, talking to our guest today, Roberta Knechtly, and her book that's coming out September 9th. It is called She Looks Fine. She wrote this book with her daughter, Paige, who is also telling a story of a mother and daughter's journey through a TBI. While we have time left, when someone listening to this, someone who know someone who is dealing with TBI or is themselves dealing with TBI, based on your own personal experience, knowing how your daughter, how she had to go and still is going through things with this, what would you say generally to encourage them to not give up living their life?
Yeah, so definitely, find those things that you are grateful for, and do, maybe try some new things and do some research. There's a lot. Like, I know that technology is the thing now, but looking at a screen or a phone is actually not good for a long period of time. And so, you have to adjust, and you just make some adjustments. And, maybe I wish that they could share. I think it's so hard for anyone to understand. I think that with my daughter, she was like, I can't explain to you. But if there was a way to just confide and speak to the people that, your caretakers, and maybe they can understand a little better. It took me a while. And then when I could see it, after, this was like 2.5 years after her accident, I was like, you are not okay. So, just confide in people and let them know. And, always just try and look at the bright side of whatever you can find. There's been a few like Bob Saget this year. He fell and hit his head, and then he went to bed. He had a TBI, and he ended up not waking up the next morning. And there's a show out right now on Netflix called Virgin River, where this lady has a traumatic brain injury. And I started watching that, and they actually have done a really good job of explaining what she's going through. My daughter went through the same thing. And so I started reading books from other people that had went through this, that had a traumatic brain injury. And so then it just was, I got a better understanding of what she was going through. So maybe talking to other people that have been through the same thing.
And with this book, a lot of people will now have opportunity to learn more about TBI and what you and your daughter had to go through. But in wrapping this up, I know you don't just write books. You're also an entrepreneur. What else is new that you haven't shared with our audience that you want to get across?
Oh my goodness. So yeah, I was like, I am not a writer. I don't, this is crazy. Well, then last year I began a journey, like a personal development journey, and, self-discovery, and went through a program and really started studying myself. And I've changed so much that I even have co-authored another book that I don't know when it's going to be out. It is a tribute book to one of my mentors. And I also have so much passion toward what I have learned that I want to do the same. I would love to be a mentor to others. And I see this happening automatically. Of course, I'm a hairstylist, so I am one-on-one with people all day. And, I've encouraged people that wanted to write a book. I've encouraged them to get started on that. So I feel like this is my purpose. And I know that this is leading me in my next journey of being like a mentor or a coach to others. So I'm very excited to be able to help people, which will help them get through things easier too. I mean, goodness, I've dealt with anxiety in the past, and I didn't deal with this really well at first, right? Now I meditate, and I think I could handle situations. I would handle that situation a lot better today than I did 4 years ago. So yeah, I mean, I just never give up. I'm 53 years old, and I feel like I'm just getting started. So my thing is, you are never too old to start something new.
And your daughter Paige, you mentioned she's into music now. Now, does she sing? Does she write only? What is it exactly that interests her in music?
She loves to sing. And I talk a lot about that in the book too. How many, she was in choir and in school and all of the things that she did. But of course, she never thought she would pursue a career in music. And after the accident, she couldn't move around real well for a while. So I had her taking guitar lessons, and which was not her forte. So she was like, no, I really just like to sing. So she started writing music and singing, and she has an album out, and
Wait! I have to pump the brakes on that one, man. That was a bombshell right there. I did not know she released music too. You got to plug the album so everybody can get the album.
Okay, and her song that she is releasing on September 9th, which is the day that the book is releasing, it's about her accident, and it's called Fearless. And wow, I mean, she wrote all of it. Everyone came into our lives that we needed, to write this book, and for her to record music. And I tell you, it's all God. But yeah, here's the thing. People don't understand, because she's able to like make music, and but what I can tell you is that if she has a day that she overdoes it, she can push it a little bit and do some things, but then I'll see the next couple of days she's completely exhausted, completely wiped out. So she can't do that every day. I tell people all the time, I have more energy than she does.
I mean, so she still graduated from college. She helped you write a book. She's putting music out. It's almost like she never had TBI. I mean, I don't have TBI. I can't make those excuses. So I'm not saying that to joke around. I'm saying that in all seriousness. That's proof in the pudding what happens when you don't give up. So I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I know. I don't know. I think that she and I both, after this, we both found our true purpose in life, and we know that this is something we have to do. Don't take any day for granted. I just told a friend that today on the phone. Don't take any day for granted. Nobody's guaranteed tomorrow. Do what you can today.
Hey, listen, I'm Refocused Radio. We're still talking to our guest, Roberta Knechtly, and your daughter, man. We've been talking about her music, and you just said the key point in this interview. Don't take the days for granted, man, and that's key. But I want to push your daughter's music, man. I want to promote her real quick. How can people find her? What's her artist name on Spotify? And how can people support her new song that's coming out September 9th?
Okay. Yeah. So on Spotify, iTunes, all of that, she is Paige, all caps, Paige, all caps. And her new song coming out on September 9th is called Fearless.
And that's awesome. And you also, back to the book that is also going to be released on September 9th with you and your daughter. You can go to your website, shelooksfinebook.com. First and foremost, it's been a great talk on today's episode about not just you and your daughter's story, but the ability to educate people more on the topic of the main point of this book, and that's TBI, traumatic brain injury. Before we let you go, is there anything that you can share with the audience, best way that they can connect with you if they want to book you for speaking, or they just want to connect with you with support group or whatever the reason may be?
Yeah, so I am on Facebook, Roberta Knechtly. I'm on LinkedIn, on Instagram. I am She Looks Fine Official. And you got the website, shelooksfinebook.com. So, you could reach out in any of those ways.
Awesome. Well, once again, been listening to Refocused Radio, talking to our guest, Roberta Knechtly. And the book, She Looks Fine, is coming out September 9th. And her daughter has new music, Paige, Fearless. You can find her on Spotify. And, man, I'm going to try to find a link so I can put it in the description. But once again, I want to say thank you, Roberta, for taking time in your schedule talking to Refocused Radio today.
Thank you so much for having me.